So Matt, recruiters always tell us, as you know, that all work experience is valuable, not just legal work experience that you do. So you've got to use whatever experiences you have, be it university stuff or jobs that you may have had in the past, to present relevant skills and experiences. How would you first go about identifying what skills and so on are relevant from the jobs that you've done?
Okay, well the first thing to say is that the person that you're presenting to a recruiter is an accumulation of all the things that you've done in the past. So what you're actually looking to say is, through my past, I'm a well-rounded individual who has developed a series of skills and experiences and behaviours that are going to indicate that I am somebody that's appropriate to be signed up for your firm. So what that means is actually providing concrete evidence that demonstrates that you have developed these skills. And what you need to think about is not just individual vignettes. You've actually got to show little pieces of progression. So the idea is that you should identify things that you have done and then look at what you learned from them and what the outcomes were. What recruiters are always looking for is evidence of progression. So what that means is that when you're doing something that seems fairly modest, actually if you're going from a position of lower to higher, then that's just demonstrating the progression I mentioned. So as you said before, no piece of experience is too small. The question is actually picking the pieces out and using them as evidence.
So what are the key skills, do you think, that employers are looking for when they're looking through your previous history of extracurricular activities and employment?
Well, I mean, one of the simplest things is that you turn up and get things done and do them on time, and that's actually one of the key things when you're looking at your job history. People who had a job since a young age are seen to be dependable, reliable, and actually understand what work involves. People who've never done a day's work and then expect to swan into an organisation are going to be suspicious. But what we also need to be looking at is the specific pieces of tasks within any given piece of work. So, and then you've got to then match them up with the skills that an organisation is looking for. And law firms and employers in general will have a set of skills that are desirable. But the ones that I think we could think of, particularly for law, might be attention to detail. Lawyers do detailed work. Resilience. Sometimes the going gets tough. That clearly it's a communications business. You need to be able to communicate very accurately, spoken format and on paper. You need to be able to work within a team. It's very, very rare that a lawyer is ploughing entirely his or her own furrow. You're always actually working with other people. You may be a follower, you may be a leader. You need to be able to be adept at both of those things. There's various other ones. Of course, the commercial awareness side is one. So if you keep those qualities in mind when you're looking at what you've done in the past, you can actually then try and pick out specific tasks that you've done and say, I did this. This demonstrates that I have developed this skill. So it's actually quite a simple case of breaking it down into smaller chunks and trying to develop a body of evidence that says you have these skills and attributes.
Sure. So shall we just take a quick example to try and illustrate that? Let's say that I used to have a part-time job in retail for a retail organisation, which is actually true. How could I present the things that I used to do in that job to take examples and use them in an application? So obviously teamwork would be one, but what else might there be?
Okay. Well, I mean, a retail example is great because retail involves dealing with lots of different people. It involves dealing with customers. So one of the very first ones is I'm dealing with the clients of this organisation, which means I have to have a professional aspect. I need to be able to listen to them. I need to be able to communicate with them and react to what they say and hopefully give them the service that they're requiring. If they cut up rough, I've got to continue to perform in a professional manner. It may be that they've got a defective good and they're hurling abuse at me. I've got to be able to suck that up and deal with it. And that's an exactly perfect example of taking specific things, taken in a single incident and say, this happened, this is how I dealt with it, this is what I learned, this is what I might have done differently the next time. Similarly, in a retail environment, you're showing responsibility, probably dealing with cash. So that's a sort of trustworthiness issue. As we mentioned before, you're turning up on time. You've also got to show attention to details. Say you're working with the money, the till's got to balance at the end of the day. So you can't be airy-fairy about that. You've got to actually do it correctly. So all of the it's just so simple retail. The other thing I guess is commercial awareness. You get an insight into how the business you work for actually operates, why it does what it does, where it makes its money, and if you can demonstrate that you've picked up on that, and even better, have made some sort of contribution to improve it, you're demonstrating the skills that they're after.